Welcome to the PRiSM podcast. We tell the stories that Hollywood won't. I'm your host, Rodrigo Mariano. Hope you guys are doing well. Across from me is Alex Hrisanthopoulos and producer Max INTERNOSICA. Behind the film, Tom and Charlie's Road Trip. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you, Rod?
I'm doing swell. I'm just chilling, like you guys.
Yeah.
I watched the film yesterday. Tom and Charlie's Road Trip. Congratulations on that. That's a lot of work that you guys put into that.
You're telling me Alex put so much work into it. He would just call me up and just say how excited he was to just get finished with this thing. Not because it was because it was his first ever feature, but it was just also oh my God, it's so much work for him. And I wish I was there in Carlsbad to help him out too, because if he came to school this year, we would have totally been a grind with just him and I, but it was all him. And really, you're a really hard worker, Alex. I gotta say, every single time you called me up, I was just like, holy shit, this guy's still going. His wheels are still turning. He would call me at 12 o'clock at night.
So Alex, you directed, produced, starred in this movie, and you did all the post pretty much too. How many hours did you put in when it came to post?
God, it must have been thousands of hours. It was crazy. I mean, I think basically it's what Max is saying. I think what's it called? It's a grind, man. It's like doing your first feature and doing it, try and take such a big role and it takes such a big bite to take is it's a huge time commitment. But I think personally, everyone should be making one, because I think if you can come out of school with a feature and just say, oh, I've been able to do this, I think it's a huge learning opportunity, and I think it looks good on the resume. So I think that's something every filmmaker should be, striving towards.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so before we get into the film more, I just wanted to talk about PRiSM as a whole. Obviously, you, Alex, founded PRiSM. You're why I'm here hosting the podcast today. Just tell the audience about the platform, really, and what's the goal, why you made it, and what the future Slate looks like when it comes to PRiSM as a production company.
Yeah, so going back to the whole road trip, PRiSM wouldn't be a thing without road trip. So that's I think I hold road trip dear in my heart, because it taught me basically that you can't do everything yourself, like I was saying, and taking that such a big bite is you can do so many different things, right? So you can produce, direct, do everything, DP, fucking everything, right? And then you're gonna suffer on things because you've done all those things. So I think if you focus on doing one thing and we can collaborate, because I think collaboration is so important for filmmaking. And I think a lot of people at film school need to realize so many people need to be, taken down to the level. It's dude, we're all the same level. We all gotta work together to make the best content possible. And I think the best way to do that is collaboration. So because I did all that and I went through that experience, I learned that lesson, that collaboration is so important. So I wanted to start something that was bigger than me, right? Because I see so many, student production companies and shit, and it's YouTube channels and that kind of stuff, and everybody has their following. But I feel with PRiSM, the whole idea is that we can bring together everybody's following into one place, so that we have a big collective following, and that way, people's art gets out there.
100%. And I really admire the sentiment of you trying to get other people to collaborate within this network of people, and the fact that you're going to be connecting people with other people who are probably not aware of their talent or their work beforehand when it comes to PRiSM. I think that's pretty great. Collaboration is 100% everything when it comes to filmmaking, and making connections is why we really go to film school in the first place. So I'm really glad that you took this on, especially during now in COVID-19. So what's next on the slate when it comes to PRiSM? Really,
So what we're shooting for right now is we're trying to drop the PRiSM website on New Year's, where we'll be able to showcase everybody's work and that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, we're also working on Unstable, which is going to be a psychological horror 4-part anthology series for the first season, I guess. And so basically the whole idea of that, mirrors PRiSM, in that each episode has its, a new writer, a new director, a new, the whole new crew. And so that way, we can showcase as many people as possible in, one series, I guess.
Perfect. So back to the movie. I really enjoyed watching it yesterday. The story is pretty insane. So I just took the synopsis off from YouTube. I'm just going to read it for those who aren't really aware of the film yet. So 2 close high school grads convince their parents to let them go on a road trip up the California coast before they go off to college. They run into many obstacles along the way, jeopardizing more than just their trip.
How we haven't been able to do anything all summer?
Yeah.
Well, let's go on a road trip. What do you say we pull over somewhere? I'm getting pretty tired.
There's a rest stop about 5 miles ahead. Do you want to stop?
Hey, I'm gonna get something out of the trunk. You want anything? All right.
I feel like some guy's just gonna pop up in the window and go, "Drugs are bad!" Like those videos we used to watch in high school, you know? Dude, you're forgetting something, dumbass. That's yours. Not mine.
This is a shit ton of blow.
Holy shit, dude. What are we gonna do? We have a bag of fucking cocaine in the trunk. This whole trip has been a fucking disaster, Tom. I've got 25 years in prison sitting in the fucking trunk of the car.
Hey, dude, it's all right. Just relax a little, okay?
So why this story, and why did you decide to tell it as both of your first features? Like, how did this come to be, really?
So I think it came to be because I started to get I started to get to know Max freshman year, probably more towards the end of first semester. And at that time, I was, sort of, really still, well, I mean, still am close to my friends from home, but I mean, at that point, like, we're calling every week and we're like, oh, how are we going to make our next movie? Because we've been making movies since high school together and that kind of stuff. And me and my good buddy Josh from high school back in like 4th grade, we just came up with the idea of it. It was like every week we'd be, okay, let's meet, let's write, let's keep going, hammer away until we had a full script. But I think the whole story idea sort of, was heavily inspired, subconsciously at least, by, comedy movies like we were watching when we were a kid, like for sure, like, Superbad. I think that was like a tone we tried to emulate. And I don't know if it fully came off, but that, and then also a film, it's actually pretty funny. Some of my really good buddies from high school, they were 2 years older. I met them through my broadcasting class. They've been making, phenomenal stuff ever since, 7th grade. They've been shooting movies together. And, so I was like 2 years behind them. So they shot their feature like 2 years before. And I was like, okay, no, I have to have my feature. That was like the driving moment where it was like, okay, they shot theirs. Like basically everything they did, I was like trying to emulate, and like subconsciously at least. And like, I was like, oh man, this would be so cool. So like, that was a huge inspiration for the film as well, in terms of tone as well. And yeah, just like sort of, trying to wrangle together a crew out here and, just shoot something. Cause I feel like that's the thing is, as a student filmmaker, you just got to say, screw it, let's go shoot something, so that was like the whole idea behind it.
When did you come aboard, Max? Just curious.
So, like Alex mentioned, he and I became a lot more closer after we went to a Bruins game at the end of first semester ish, like more in the middle. We both had the same history media arts professor, and where he and I just would equally just fall asleep in the class and would have his headphones on watching the Bruins game. And all he wanted to do was just create. And he was telling me about how there was this thing that he was working on with his friend Josh from back home, because he would have back and forth conversations with him. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, what is it? And he was like, oh, well, if you want to become a writer, I was like, I'm not much of a writer, but I'll take a look at it. So I took a look at it, and then I said, this is some good stuff that you have here. Did you and Josh have? And he was like, oh, that's cool. And I was, hey, I mean, listen, Alex, where are you from? And I was like, he said, oh, Carlsbad. And I was like, oh, so I've never been to Carlsbad. And he's like, it's like close to San Diego. And so I'm like, okay, well, if you want, I'm not doing anything this summer, I can help you make this. I've never produced anything, but I've seen some friends who would make Kickstarter pages or GoFundMe's, whatever. So I set one up and I made him an admin on it. And we basically had this goal to in mind to have enough money for transportation, get like, for food and for some equipment that we had to rent. And since it was my first time producing, I was a little scared and going across the country to go in California. But Alex, he already had stuff planned out from the beginning. He let me stay at his house. I got to meet his great family, his brother, sister, mother, father, all great people. And I also got to meet his rambunctious group of friends who are fantastic people, very fun to be around. And that's kind of like the perfect environment to kind of make a story, especially since Alex said he's been making stories like that and with his group of friends since high school. I personally didn't have that. I was the only kind of person around here, besides another friend of mine, Ben, who would make films just at home by himself. And he and I worked on something, but it just didn't really it didn't really match the intensity that Alex and I had in being able to go through a feature at the age that we're at. And since he was able so like readily to catch on to everything, we were just ready to go as soon as we hit the Carlsbad. Like as soon as I came from the airport, I dropped my stuff off and we went right to filming.
No way.
Yeah, at his house. We went right there and we did the cop scene, which was the first thing. So I got to see his friend Logan put on the cop outfit with the cowboy hat on and everything. Just I got to be boom for that. I think I got to hold the camera for like one shot. We had to turn on the cop lights at a certain part to get it like in the reflection of the car, and it was tough because I was especially tired because I think my flight was at like from like I want to say like 6 o'clock during the day, but then by the time I landed, it was only like 8 o'clock in Carlsbad because of the time difference. So by the time I landed, I was like, oh, I'm so tired. So his mom and him got me Carl's Jr. When we landed. When we got Carl's Jr., we went home, dropped off my bag, and I went, all right, let's go shoot. And then we shot the scene. And after that, we went back home and we looked at the stuff that we got and we thought it looked great. And so just that, the whole timeline there of it happening, I loved meeting Alex for sure. I feel like it was destined. I loved it. It was because, especially since, Alex, like he mentioned, he was just talking with his buddies the entire time. And I had my group of friends at Emerson, and he had his, but we sort of meshed together a bit. We actually had one big group chat and but none of us really talked to each other except just me and Alex. And we both had this drive to, it sounds cliche, but to create really, because Emerson, in our perspective, Emerson, we both love Emerson, but there is some better things they can do when it comes to the limitations that they add on people. And that's the thing Alex and I hate, our limitations. We believe in it's easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. So we just wanted to go out and create, and it was really fun. And we got to do that over the summer in 2019.
And I can put into perspective when like that whole story Max was just talking about, like when he flew in, like at that point, like we'd been shooting for a while, back here. Right. And basically what happens is like, dude, I was about to lose my mind. Like I was so stressed out. It's like the last straw. It was like the last straw, dude. I was about to have a breakdown. And when Max came, it was such a huge weight off my shoulders. It was like, it felt so good to just be like, okay, dude, we're about to, you know what I mean? We're getting this thing done. It's finally happening. Like, this is it. We're finally going to wrap on this thing. But little did I know, like the whole road of post-production. But I think like at that point, dude, there was like a huge weight off my shoulders for sure.
Yeah, you said that you collaborated with a lot of your friends for this movie. So there's probably like a experience disparity between like a lot of you guys. So how do you like manage that? So your friends might have zero experience, but you guys are actual filmmakers. Because personally, from my perspective, filmmaking at home is totally different than filmmaking at Emerson. Oh, clearly. Well, it is hard to like manage my friends, especially when it comes to like filming a product. So I'm just curious how you guys handle that experience.
Like you send your friends a call sheet. It's like, what the fuck is this? Like, just text me when to show up. And then they would show up like an hour later or 30 minutes later. And I'm like, dude, we were supposed to begin like 10 minutes ago. Like, what's up? What's your problem? And then people would get so stressed out and they'd be like, chill. Like, it's just like something fun that we're doing. It's like, no, you don't understand. Like, all this. I have the equipment. We only have the equipment for 2 hours. Like I paid $100 for it. And they just don't understand just the stressfulness of just carrying an entire film on your back.
Yeah.
especially like from me back, me being home. I was the one that shot it, directed, and edited all my stuff. I know for sure Alex probably was too, but he does have a friend Connor, who knows how to do all that stuff too, I believe.
Yeah. So for me at least, we had a filmmaking class in my high school, and a lot of my friends took that or broadcasting. But actually, like, well, okay. Anyway, so they had like a little bit of a foundation anyway, at least in film, or like they knew like at least how to write and like how to structure a script or like basic stuff. But it was funny because we had a casting call, and like I was so pumped to do it. Me and Josh show up, and it's like 2 days we did for like 4 hours or something. We're sitting there, nobody like we had like 3 people to show up the whole time. We're like, shit, dude, this is gonna be gnarly. And it's like I'm desperately trying to find actors for this thing, and like we cast one of my teammates from our lacrosse team, and he bails because of the script was a little too profane for him. So then at one point he bailed out, and then I was like asking favors. I'm like, Mitchell, like he plays Charlie in the film. I'm like, Mitchell, please, buddy, you have to do this for me, bud. And he did it, and he totally clutched up. And I think a lot of it was Caleb was a real actor, right? Caleb like knew what he was doing a little bit. He plays Tom. And so I think, as the shoots went on, I think Mitchell would be bouncing off Caleb a little bit more, and Caleb would be giving him pointers here and there. And then it was able to like make Mitchell a better actor, as they went. So I think like obviously some of the scenes in the beginning is like, oh God, you're cringing really hard. But then like, Mitchell like becomes a pretty good actor. And I'm like, holy crap, Mitchell. Like I see him as like my friend, and now he's becoming some actor, so that's pretty cool. But, it's like everybody here, like, when we were shooting had their regular jobs, and they had, girlfriends and that kind of stuff to deal with. So it's like, sort of trying to find that schedule to fit everybody into, and like sort of like, take the square block and put it in the, circle peg was so hard, but we managed, and I'm happy, it all ended up getting done for sure.
Yeah, no, your actors really clutched up. Obviously, like the first scene is a little bit like, oh, where's this gonna go? But Mitchell and Caleb really pull it off at the end. I was surprised how you directed the actors and honestly their performances by the end of the movie when I was watching it yesterday. So back to like the shoot. I'm just gonna put this out here, like stories from the shoot. Just super broad display. Like, what are your favorite memories from shooting, or the most random, most like unexpected moments from shooting?
Oh boy, Max, hit him with the finale scene. How that went down.
So we had an interesting encounter with the law.
Perfect. That's what I want to hear. That's the ask forgiveness before permission.
Yeah, no, for real. That's like that like embodies that image right there. What happened was we were doing, obviously the last scene of the movie is very like not violent per se, but it's definitely intense to the point where like, someone's getting beat up. So with that being said, there was where we were, even though it looked kind of like deserted, like with like, not really, but like definitely looked like a place where no one would bother you. There was little do you know, there was like on the other side of the car, like looking the other way, like where the camera's looking at the car, behind the camera, there's apartment buildings. But they're pretty far away. But what we had out there was practically a crew. We had a guy doing boom. We had me, I had the shoulder rig on. We had a huge freaking camera with us, with the entire rig built together. And at times obviously when Josh isn't kicking Caleb anymore, they're just like, okay, like what? And we're just like talking and stuff. And we had this like this nice Range Rover in the back. And, but I guess someone in the apartment building called the cops because they saw Josh kicking Caleb on the ground. And, but it wasn't immediate. There was like cops. There was like, I want to say we saw, I don't know if it was the same cop car or not, but roughly, I'll just say we saw 10 cruisers, maybe 6 or 7 of them. And we're like right by a highway, or like a interstate kind of road. So we saw a bunch of cop cars like going by, like
going back and forth.
Yeah, with their lights on. We're just like, oh God, like I hope like whoever, like someone's okay, like whoever, like I wonder if there's like a crime being committed.
And we're more mad about like shit, dude. We're recording audio right now, brother.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, and we have a gun too. We have a fake gun. So that doesn't help. So we had to like put it away every few often. But then there was a point where this cop car was going very slow with his lights on, and it was like, are these the kids that we got a call from? Let me just say something. And then so the guy pulled up,
and then we're all freaking out. We're like, fuck, dude, the sun's setting, bro. Like, we're not gonna be able to get this scene done. Like, what? This is the last day. Caleb leaves tomorrow for his fucking wedding in Las Vegas. Like, god damn it, bro. Like, we're losing our mind. I'm fucking,
and dude,
I'm like a sailor.
Alex, you had a gun in your fucking waist. You had to go like, toss it in the trunk, toss it in the trunk. And then like the cop pulled up though and was like, we got a call of someone getting beat up around here. And Alex like, or someone was like, yeah, that's us. And it's just like, oh, okay, what are you doing over here? And it's like, yeah, we're making a movie and yada, yada, yada. And everything was nice and shiny and clean. The guy was walking away and all of a sudden, Alex has to say, this will make some good behind the scenes, huh? And he said, and then the cop went like that.
Snapped.
Yeah, the cop said like, what did he say, Alex?
I said, this will make a great story for the behind the scenes or something like that. The cop fucking snapped. He goes like, you fucking morons, you know, like you're wasting time. You could have killed people. It's like, dude, it's not my fault. These people are calling cops on us for, I don't know. I didn't see any problem with it. But
I don't even know how they would mistake us. We're like, we had like a crew around us. It wasn't like, you know, it was like a small crew, but it's not like, who would film someone legitimately getting beat up? Like you're on
with a boom.
Yeah, you're on like a sick website. Like, oh my, like no. But
World Star.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's like that was like one of like the weirdest incidents that ever happened. And it's in the behind the scenes that we're gonna release soon. Just don't know when, but yeah. One of the weirdest incidents out there. And I think Alex had another one where they had to like film the Carl's Jr. scene real quick because obviously we didn't have permission to film any in any of these places except for like in the houses. So he had to like film these things real quick. I don't know how many burgers you bought or whatever.
Yeah.
Wait,
no, that one was pretty crazy. Like there was like the scene where they're like outside like the Carl's Jr. They're just like sitting there eating burgers or whatever. Yeah. That one is kind of stressful, but the more stressful one was the rest stop. That's probably my favorite scene. One of my favorite scenes in the movie. Rod, you probably know what I'm talking about. The rest stop scene.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so for that scene, we basically were at this regular rest stop with shit tons of truckers and shit. And like, how are we gonna film this? So we're like, okay, Caleb, you gotta like stand outside and make sure nobody comes in here for like 5 minutes. We're just gonna film this super, super fast. And we just went for it. And people were like, oh, can we it's like, no, they're under construction. We fucking shot this scene. And I think that scene is like probably, I think, comedic timing. And like, I think it was probably the funniest scene in the movie, even though it is a little, on the edge. But I thought it was pretty funny.
Didn't you lock the door too so no one would come in?
Yeah, like Caleb like leaned back on the door so nobody could come in. That's like we walk out with a camera and like 3 actors and the boom guy, and they're like, oh, and then like right past like 5 people who are waiting in line to go to the bathroom. Oh god, yeah, it was hilarious. That was really
that one. I wish I was there for that. I just saw it on your Instagram story, and it was, like the caption was like movie making or something.
That's fucking hilarious.
It was like just like you have this camera crew and you're in this like small bathroom. So
honestly, that's pretty funny. My favorite scene in the movie wasn't that one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that's up there. Was the one where Caleb and Mitchell were smoking outside of the Motel 6.
Yeah.
Personally, that's my favorite scene in the movie. Their performances seem really natural. Did you guys use real weed?
No, I have a story for that one.
Funny on that one, yeah. No, you got it, Max. My bad.
I found out how to roll up fake marijuana joints by using oregano, and it smoked exactly the same way it does, like with the smoke.
It does,
and it smelled like it, dude. It smelled like it.
And none of these guys smoked. Mitchell didn't even want. And here's the thing, though: if you like inhaled it too, smoke would come out of your mouth too, but it would just taste like burnt pizza in your mouth. So basically, what we did was. Since it's 21 to buy a vape pen in California, we had Alex's mom get us a vape pen, and we this is the
only one
21 while you're filming.
The only one with no nicotine too. So
Yeah.
because we're not gonna make our actors, fucking
And
nicotine the whole time.
The flavor was cronuts and milk.
It was disgusting.
So
It
we
was
would
disgusting.
have Mitchell. I don't know if, and it's so he pulled it off so well because you can't even tell he's holding in like smoke for either of them. But he would just like inhale, and then he was like
Action.
and then he would and his like coughs were so convincing, and it was so cool. And before though, we made like 10 or 15 of these because we would go through because they burned a lot quicker. That's a word. They burned a lot faster than usual, which is the case for like movie cigarettes, pot, anything like that. So, but it turned out so well on camera. And Alex and I were fucking with them after, just like seeing if it looked, and it's just like, and then we played like Snoop Dogg and shit, just like, and then we did it like in front of his mom. So he's like, we were like, how does this look? And he's like, oh my god, it looks so good. And oh my god, that was great. I love it.
Was funny.
Yeah, it did look great. I was asking because I tried to do something like that before. It was also in a car, 2 actors who didn't smoke marijuana. So I just bought these menthol cigarettes from Amazon with no nicotine in them. And they said like they used them in like Neighbors and other Seth Rogen comedies. So we did not end up using them, but it was pretty fun. Like I would bring those to New York. We went to Fordham. We offered them to a bunch of random people, and they actually really enjoyed them because I have no idea why. It was just mad funny though.
Yeah, no, for a set I actually did at Emerson where they had like herbal cigarettes or some shit. And so we had extra ones, and me and our buddy Surrey were just smoking them on set. It was pretty freaking funny.
Dude,
they're not bad. That's the thing.
Yeah, they aren't.
Alex sent me a video like while they were like walking, because they walked back from set, I think, which was like a good like mile and a half, and they were just walking back while they're just like
ripping these.
I don't know what herbal cigarettes did to you guys, but you guys are just like all freaking giggly and
yeah, we're like delirious after like 12 hours of shooting, ripping these things, walking back in the freezing cold in Boston, like,
and getting kicked out.
November.
Did you get kicked out of that area too?
Or something, yeah. No, we didn't get kicked out. I don't think. I mean, it was like a 12-hour shoot though, so we were losing our minds. You know how that goes. And but like you were saying before, Rod, like the difference between shooting at home with your friends versus shooting like at Emerson, like we wouldn't be able to do half the shit we wanted to, especially for the budget we had. If we were going, getting permits and shit, like our budget would probably cover 1 permit. You know what I mean? So it's like that like at this level, it's like that's what you have to do. You have to be hungry. You have to like, take those risks to be able to shoot a film. Yeah. Because 9 times out of 10, it will end up working out in your favor, I guess. Versus going to Emerson, you have to get all these freaking permits and you have to like do all these regulations and shit on set, which is like it's understandable. But I think like when it's such low budget and it's like you have people that are really driven and creative and that kind of stuff, you can figure out how to work around your limitations. And I think that like spawns even more creativity,
And the budgets that Emerson gives their students too is far less than what we got. We wanted $1,500 and we got it. And we were so happy. We're like, oh my God, this is like triple or like double what an Emerson production would give you. This is great. We can do so much with $1,500. We were happy to get $1,500. And there are some productions out there like in like Hollywood that'd be like, shit, we got $100,000. Are you kidding me? And we're just like, if we got $100,000, it would be game over. Like we would be in like an editing suite instead of Alex's house, and it would have been game over. It would have been
renting cameras.
Yeah, for real.
Like that's another thing. It's like also I was telling Rod this before. I feel like it's like when you take time away from a project and you're still learning. So I think like we're still students, so we're still learning. We're growing at like a exponential rate. I feel like is that we're at college, and shooting on set there and figuring that kind of things out. I feel like you learn so much, so it becomes extremely difficult to look back at your older stuff and you just like cringe, so like for me, I think it might be a combination because I've seen the movie like a million fucking times because I've been editing it, and also like that as well, and the time sets in. It's like, dude, I look back at some of this stuff, I'm like, oh my God. But it's like, don't get me wrong, there's some great scenes in the film, and like I feel like I think there's some films there's some scenes that are great, and then there's some scenes that are complete shit, But I think like when you look back on it, you're your worst critic as well. But I think like it's like, dude, I would have changed this, I would have changed this, I would have changed this. When it's like most times the audience wouldn't even notice, So it's like I think that was like a huge learning point, where it's like I think we learned so much making a feature. But like at the same time, it's like that's like the big negative is that you're like, while you're editing, it feels so hard to put out. It feels like so hard to, you know, have that drive to finish it, because like, fuck, dude, this isn't representative of like my work now, you know, because this is like a year ago me, and I'm putting it out now, you know what I mean? Especially with how long it took to edit it and that kind of stuff, with school going on and all that stuff. So I think that was also another thing, is like COVID, you know, kind of came in and was like, okay, now you have all this free time. It's like, what are you going to do with it? It's like, dude, I got to finish this fucking movie. And thank God that happened, because if it weren't for COVID, I feel like it would have been like dragging on and on and on. But I think because of that, I was able to hunker down and like fully just like go, okay, I'm editing every fucking day. I'm editing for, you know, this many hours and finishing this damn thing and getting this thing out there. Yeah, no, so that's a huge thing. And I think it's a good thing though, because it means that you're growing as a filmmaker, you're growing as an artist, when you can look back at your old stuff. But I think that's another thing, is we'll never be satisfied with our work, because everything we're making is going to be better, but that's a good thing. So it's like, if you can make more things and make those things quality, you know, and, you know, fully pour your heart into it, then it's going to be like, okay, you're going to get better. But I mean, if you're just making more projects just to make more projects, and it's like, they'll stay the same. But I mean, if you're, you know, really pouring your heart into it, I think that's when you start growing exponentially and taking that next step.
I think how I grew as an artist on set was never leave your burrito in the trunk of a car, because Alex will sit on it.
I'll keep that one in mind.
I'm fucking around. Yeah, well, that's a funny story, because we all got burritos because we were hungry, and we were doing that beach thing where the two guys were Alex and Josh's characters were sitting on the back of the Range Rover, and I guess we were like, that's where I was eating, like where Alex's was. So we were like, all right, let's get ready, like, because the sun's going down. I was like, okay. I took a bite and I put it down, and then of course when Alex sat down on it, and it was like, I didn't realize until we got up, and I was like, oh, that's my burrito.
And I didn't even realize, because I'm so like laser focused on like, okay, we gotta go, we gotta finish this shit. Let's go, come on, let's go.
And people were constantly walking in the background. I'm glad it didn't show up as much, but yeah, I felt like participating on this was definitely a learning curve for all of us, and it felt great though to finally get it under your belt, though, definitely.
Yeah, no, the finished product is pretty great considering all the circumstances. And back to like the editing stuff, yeah, it's hard to even edit like short films once you move on to another project and fall out of love with it. So I'm surprised that you spent that many hours, grueling hours, with this film. Like, how long has it been since shooting? Like,
we shot last summer. Yeah, last summer.
August 2019. It was August 2019, because that's when I left. And as soon as I left, I had 2 weeks to get ready to go back to Emerson. Yeah, but also I have to skedaddle in about like a minute. So thank you for having me on though, Rod and Alex. Appreciate it.
Of course, dude.
Good to see you guys.
Talking Tom and Charles with you guys though. Love it.
Let's talk soon, Max.
Yeah.
Great talking to you.
Yeah, we'll talk soon, dude, Rod. Nice meeting you. All right.
Nice meeting you.
All right. See ya.
Peace, brother.
See ya. So yeah, back to the editing thing. Well, thank you to Max for coming on. But back to the editing thing. So you have this massive assembly cut because you film so much shit. How did you cut it all down to 1 hour? That's crazy.
Dude, that was the craziest part, was like we were shooting some scenes at the end, because it's like I'm looking, because I'm editing as we go as well. Like, well, after we'd be done shooting, like I'd be editing like all night, and then like we wake up the next morning, I'm like dead tired, like, okay, we gotta go again, because I was like, what, you know, like right after you shoot something, you're so pumped, and you're like, fuck, dude, I want to go check out what this looks like, and get some clips in the timeline and check it out. And thank God I did that, because I think that would have been bad if I didn't do that, because I wouldn't have the drive to actually like start it, in the first place, because you got to first take that step. But I did each scene kind of individually.
Okay.
Because I don't think my computer would be able to handle like 4K timeline for the whole fucking movie, And so I did each scene individually, and then, but my workflow kind of was whack, because I'd be moving between my laptop when I went off to school and back to my, home PC. And what happened was I'd color it, and then I'm learning color grading as well. So I was teaching myself a little bit, so I'd learn, and then they're like, oh, this color grade looks like shit. Let me do that again. No, the same thing for editing. It's like I'd be editing. I'm like, okay, this looks like shit. Let me redo this over, and I redo it over. And then eventually I had these cuts with the color grade. And I'm like, okay, scrap this color grade. Because I'm not gonna be able to make it consistent if I'm just doing it each timeline. And so what I did was then I'd just export the whole timeline in ProRes as highest quality possible, and then throw it on my hard drive, and then import it and throw them all into a new timeline, and then manually cut every single cut in the whole movie again.
Jesus Christ.
Every single cut, boom, 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 and then go through each shot, color. That whole color grading process, I really rushed it though, because it was like the last week, but it took me like a week or so to finish a color grade on that, which is extremely fast if anybody knows color grading for a feature especially. But I was just like trying to get it done, at that point. And so then under there I'm doing like layering the sound mixes, and then I'm like collaborating with my buddy Jordan, who did the score, and he's fucking phenomenal, dude. This guy's a wizard at what he does.
The score's great, dude.
Thank you, man. Yeah, no, Jordan. Yeah, no, thank Jordan for that one, actually. Jordan clutched up, and he's actually doing Unstable as well. Super talented guy from Berkeley. And so, yeah, so I'd be sound mixing, and I'd send him off a rough cut and be like, okay, here's what we need. We'd meet over Zoom and figure it out. And then, what's it called? Yeah, he'd send me back some cuts. I'd say, oh, I need this change, this change, this change. Go total trooper about it, changes those things, fixes it. Bring it back in, like, this is perfect, dude, this is phenomenal. And then I'm like layering this, but then I'd recut something. I'm like, I cut off, because that opening scene was long as it was.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, okay, we just gotta, like, that was like one of the last things shot, and I was like, dude, we gotta hit that 1 hour 10-minute mark. And we just kept shooting. That was like originally almost a 10-minute long scene. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? This is so boring. So I mean, I think even now it dragged on a little bit, but I cut off a good 3 or 4 minutes off of that scene from what it originally was. I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, even stuff like that, just like, you can save it in the edit, especially like once you learn. I'm like, I'd much rather have a quality hour and 3 minutes versus, an hour and 10 minutes where people are clicking away in the first 5 minutes because it's the first scene. I'm like, I was so stupid to think about that. You know what I mean? But it was like, I was just trying to be able to say, oh, this thing's an hour 10, this thing's an hour 15. This is like a full, thing. But I still feel like anything over an hour felt for me like it was, I'd accomplished that goal I set out to make a feature.
Yeah, back to just the filming in general. What kind of filmmaker are you? I know personally, I'm the type who wants to like plan everything out. I basically storyboard everything. And if something pops into my head that's really, really worth shooting in the moment, then I'll do that too. But usually when it comes to shooting, it's just like, I shoot what I plan and set out to do. Was it like that for this movie? And is that your shooting style? Or is your shooting style more like, oh, fuck it, let's see what we could create?
Okay, in the past, dude, no storyboards, no shot lists, no nothing. We literally just go, set up a camera, and just fucking roll and figure it out on the fly. Mm-hmm. For this thing, I was like learning at school a little bit. I was like, oh, I should shot list into this. So like, I'm like, okay, let's shot list into this. But like, when you don't have like the permits and shit, and the location's completely different what you think it's gonna be, and it's like people are like going this, and it's like we're just at the end. It got to, like I'd have everything kind of storyboarded out, and we figure it out a little bit. But then towards the end, it was like, dude, I don't have time to storyboard all this shit. We just got to fucking go shoot this thing. And
yeah.
Like, fuck these storyboards I have. Like, we're not going to be able to do this. So we just like, literally it came down to just like, that shot looks great. Let's use that. Kind of figured it out on set. We used all natural lighting pretty much.
Really?
Except for the green screen car scenes. Other than that, like it was all natural lighting. So I think as a cinematographer, I'm trying to, emulate a very, naturalistic lighting style. But I think that kind of comes with my filmmaking style as well, from back home at least, is that we're shooting in these naturalistic locations. One bounce card and it's good. But even for this movie, like I didn't even think to use bounce cards because I'd never done that in the past. It would more be just like kind of figuring it out on the fly. And I think it shows in the movie that we didn't do that, which I'm kind of like bummed about a little bit. But it is what it is. I think like I've learned so much since then. It's like, dude, that whole movie was shot on one lens. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, like what different focal lengths would mean and like all that stuff. And I think like we didn't learn that at school yet. And I just thought, okay, I'm just going to buy a nice 24 millimeter. I was on my micro four thirds on the Blackmagic. So it was like cropped in to be like a 50. I'm like, okay, that sounds about perfect. I've shot like everything else on my old 51.8 when I had the Canon. And like, I was like, yeah, that will work. It gives you a nice background. And like, it looked all right. But I think so many scenes would have looked way better if we had, the amount of lenses I have now and like the give it character versus a super, super sharp broken on lens, which is, it's a great lens. Don't get me wrong. And like a lot of these super sharp lenses are great, but I feel like for a lot of, you know, filmmakers and stuff, when you're making a movie, I feel like it didn't really fit Road Trip that well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, when it comes to lighting, I do have my own lights, well, only because here in Connecticut, it's hard to find places with a lot of street lights and all of that. I'm sure that was a great asset in California to have all those locations that are decently well lit enough to look cinematic already. That's a pretty great asset, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's definitely huge for sure. I think a lot of it was like finding like, oh, this time of day would work perfect for this scene because then we're getting a light from over here. Just like subconsciously thinking that in my mind, like, oh, we'll move this wouldn't work at 12 because then we're gonna have huge shadows under the eyes and it's gonna look like shit, you know. Versus like if we just push this back to 3, you know, if we angled the actors this way, it would look all right. Like, but none of that was like written down for me.
Yeah,
it was more just like in my mind, just thinking like, just from like past experience of like shooting, you know, not narrative stuff, shooting like documentaries and shit for broadcasting in high school, was a lot of, you know, figuring out natural lighting because we never really brought lights on for interviews and shit because it was like a lot of running gun.
So how long did you guys shoot for this movie?
Yeah.
How many days? And how long were the days when it comes to like hours and stuff?
It was like every day. Well, we had it originally, so we had 2 weeks blocked off, plus a bunch of weekends. But like I made sure we had 2 weeks blocked off. But then it came down to, oh, we're only gonna get one of those weeks, and then all these weekends. So it ended up being like 13 days total. Plus I got a bunch of pickup shots with my mom driving around in the car and like exteriors and that kind of stuff, and just like to you know add those, you know, sort of sequences, I guess. But it was like when it was those days because it was cut down, we were like, okay, we're shooting literally all day. So it'd be like 10 or 12 hour days. And it was 13 days or 12 days or something like that. Because we had to cram everything into there. And because of that, like we had to, you know, cut a lot of corners and like we couldn't find a restaurant to shoot at. And so like originally we had like a long scene planned out in a restaurant that we were going to shoot, you know, when they kind of like meet each other, the mob boss people and then the Tom and Charlie. So when they come across paths at the end, that was all supposed to be an Italian restaurant. And we were originally going to shoot it and it was going to be super cool. But then like that unfortunately fell through. So we had to like figure out, oh, how are we going to adapt that? Like that was a lot on the fly too. Like I didn't rewrite the script for that. That was a lot of improv, was figuring that out. And yeah, no, I think it was like 13 days and just grinding those 13 days though.
And when it came to the edit, is the cut exactly how you wanted it to be? Or were you expecting like something longer? Like, did you have to cut out certain scenes to, I don't know, was there anything that you were attached to at all that you had to leave out?
There was one scene that we cut was because it was funny. I was like, okay, dude, we're going to try and get to that hour 15 mark. We're just going to shoot an improv scene, me and Josh in the hotel room. And we're kind of flipping out on each other because of this whole thing. And it was really fucking fun. It was hilarious. But I thought it was all improv though. But like we like trashed this fucking motel room in this scene. We're just like, okay, one shot, just fucking go for it. Max is like flying back and forth with the rig. And it's going, me and Josh is fighting. I'm throwing pizza at him. He like puts me in a headlock. I grab the phone and I rip it out from the wall, wrap the cord around his neck and shit. And like, dude, if you look closely, like at some points we broke character. We were about to die. Dude. It was so close to cracking. But I'm like, I think that's the reason I really cut it, was because it fully didn't sell and it didn't feel like it fit in that part of the movie. But I think, dude, if it's him being the deleted scenes for sure. But yeah, no, I thought that scene was fucking hilarious. We have like Josh's sister was there on set that day, and so she just filmed like a whole behind the scenes of that and of the whole scene. It was we did the whole scene in one take. It was fucking hilarious.
Jesus Christ, dude.
It was so funny.
That sounds pretty rad, honestly. I wish I could see it right now if I could.
We had I think that was probably one of the most fun scenes to film. Besides the cop scene was freaking hilarious too.
The cop scene?
Yeah,
oh no, that.
Eventually,
so you got a guy who you guys bought a police uniform. And also you bought red and blue lights to reflect on the car?
Yeah, the red and blue lights came from Josh. Just had those for some reason. I don't know why he did, but he had them, and so he used those. He didn't put them up on the car usually. He just had them in like his room or something from when he was like little or something. But they worked, and they were bright enough to like shoot this. And we were like, oh shit, this would be sus to shoot this because like,
Yeah, dude.
that was the day. Okay, no, that was the day before we saw the cops. But I was like still sussed in my mind, like, dude, what if we get caught for this? So like we're driving, like we found this like super secluded road in like a business part of like my city, and so we were like, fuck it, we'll just shoot there. And like nobody bothered us or anything. I was still super nervous the whole time. But yeah, no, that scene was fun to shoot. Not that the guy who played the cop is one of my good buddies from high school as well. And he was just happy to make his cameo in there. Because originally though, it was supposed to be my film teacher was supposed to play the cop.
Really?
But we couldn't line up because we had a day plan, but then like we had to reschedule shit, and like it was a mess, dude. I was stressing out like crazy, and then my buddy Logan was like, dude, screw it, I'll be the cop for sure. And then he was the cop, and it was hilarious. It turned out so good. He's got that charisma for sure for comedy.
So there's that one shot where they pass by a car before the cop car comes.
Yeah.
Wait, was that? From what I remember, it looked like a real cop car.
It wasn't actually. What I did was I went and shot that. Those were pickup shots I shot with my mom in the same place. And I had her just drive by. What I did was I got it a clean plate. So like that was all in focus, the cop car.
Mhm.
And then I threw a 3D model in there and threw like lighting on it to make it look sort of realistic, but it still wasn't selling it. And so what I did was I added a lens blur on there, and it kind of sold it a little bit more. And then when the car drove by, I masked out the car and feathered the fuck out of it, and then made the car in focus as it went by. If you look in like the window of the van when it drives by, you can see like right through it. It's like sharp, which is only something like that I'd see because like I'm working frame by frame.
Yeah.
But I think it sold it pretty well, and like I added like cop art overlay lights and shit.
Yeah, dude.
And the lights and the voiceover is pretty funny. I recorded it like a couple weeks ago when I was still editing it. I recorded it through Snapchat. So I was like, dude, Logan, because I was asking my buddy Logan to send me over a voice file. I'm like, dude, wait, I can just record this through Snapchat. So I Snapchat video called him, and he's with his girlfriend. I'm like, okay, Logan, I need you to say, pull over, fuckers. So this is his girlfriend. It was really funny, and he did it. I just recorded on my mic through my phone, and then I distorted the fuck out of it, and it sounded all right. But yeah, no, that scene was one of my favorite scenes to shoot for sure.
Yeah, that was really convincing to me, for sure.
It came off. It sold.
No, it sold me. That's why I asked about it. I was curious if you guys actually passed by a cop car to do that.
That's good. That's good. It sold. Because I see that. You know, I see that it's like a little bit. You know, you can tell it's a 3D model. It looks kind of. But I think it's good that it passed off. For sure.
It's too bad that Max isn't here anymore, because I was just gonna ask about like the whole Amazon Prime distribution portion of like how you guys are releasing this thing. How are you guys doing that?
It's through. I think it's through Prime Video Direct or something like that, and you basically just have to do subtitles. And so the workaround for that, what I did was I got subtitles from YouTube. I use the auto-generated subtitles from YouTube because I'm not going to pay someone to do subtitles because we don't have that in the budget. So I just used the auto-generated subtitles from YouTube on a private link, downloaded those subtitles, you know, fixed a couple typos in here, and like YouTube blurs or adds this like a bracket and then like a bunch of spaces where it'd be a cuss word. So we had so many fucking cuss words, so I'm typing in all the cuss words and stuff. That took forever. That's another thing is like, dude, I look at it and it's like, dude, that's so freshman me. You know, it's like I want to be as edgy as possible, man. I want to have more cuss words than the fucking South Park, South Park one that had the most cuss words ever in a movie. It's like, but I look back on that. That's another thing I cringe at for sure. But I mean, it's just like I'm learning, you know, that's not realistic, and like that's not how people actually talk with that many cuss words. Even people like our age, I guess, don't even use that much cuss words, or even younger than us. So
it's actually funny. Yeah. I was watching it on my laptop with no headphones on, obviously, and my mom kept on saying like, "What are you watching? There's so many cuss words in that."
That's funny.
And my mom's like super overprotective and like is not aware of me being like 19. So she's like, "You shouldn't be watching that." And I'm like, "Okay, Mom, totally."
Yeah, no, that's something for sure. Like I've figured out now is like I got to tone down on that language a little bit, and like that's why we put a little disclaimer in the beginning as well to make sure kids are not seeing that, because I think that would be kind of and especially like in the opening scene, I was debating cutting it because I think a lot of Well, I mean, I cut a lot of what was bad in there for sure, but I think there's a lot of language throughout for sure, and like even what they talk about is kind of problematic. But I think that that's just the characters, you know, like that's pretty raw, and like how the characters feel, I guess, and how they talk. So, but I mean, I think I did go a little overboard for sure.
Well, they are out of high school. It's pretty natural considering. I mean, I don't know how I was like 2 years ago, but probably not too far off from that, to be honest.
Yeah, a little immature, especially like when he goes in the rest stop and that kind of stuff, and he comes out and he's like, hoo, 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 there's love in the air, you know? And I was like, yeah, like a lot of that's really immature for sure. But yeah, no, that's something I want to take, like, especially for my films going on from here. I think a comedy was, I think especially if people are going to try and shoot, especially student filmmakers, if you're trying to shoot a feature, I think definitely don't like, you know, read this like I'm talking God's word or whatever, you know, but like try and shoot a comedy, because I think so many, you know, learning or student filmmakers are so, you know, they try and be so serious. It's always like, oh, this is going to be a movie about this guy who's suicidal and he's taking pills.
Yeah, dude.
And it's so cringe, you know, it's like,
that's the Emerson template.
Dude, for sure. And it's like, I mean, I think those stories have been told and are going to be told again and can be told well. But I think until you can build up your language as a filmmaker and build the skills to be able to tell that story is not going to come off as well as a comedy, which is like, because I think for the most part, most people think they're funny, at least, or are funny. And so they can, you know, sort of lean into that. And like people will forgive the, you know, shittier camera, you know, movements and that kind of shit if it's a comedy, if it's funny, you know what I mean? So I think versus if people get zoned out from you know, a serious movie, if it's like, oh, this shot's really shitty lit and it's like out of focus and like it looks like crap, you know, it's like, and like the sound, that's a huge thing, is sound. It's like a lot of that the scenes is like I'm dubbing over myself in my room trying to like fix that shit. Like that's another thing, because I think people will forgive your visuals more than they'll forgive audio, because I think if you just have shitty audio, people click away right away.
How much did you have to dub over? Because I did notice that you guys filmed a lot around cars and highways.
Not enough, honestly. I should have done more, but I just didn't have time to do more. But I did that one scene where we're talking on the phone when all the cars are driving by because there's an airplane going over. I dubbed over a couple lines there, but even I should have done the whole scene for sure, because I noticed for sure that it sounded different. But I was like, screw it, I don't feel like doing this whole scene. And like the scene in the rest stop, I actually made those sounds and everything with I was like making those sounds and dubbing them in and like adding reverb to sound like it's in a
bro.
Like,
you in your room by yourself doing that? That's mad funny.
It was being like right up next to the mic, ASMR style. So it's pretty funny. And then like I'm like making the sounds for Mitchell. Like I had to dub in some sounds for Mitchell in there, and I'm like, I have a much deeper voice than Mitchell, so I'm like, I literally just take the picture and like move it up, like when he was laughing right now, I had to like pitch it up a little bit and add the reverb, and I think it like came off all right. So I think like that's something for sure, is making sure you have a really good audio person on set, which I think we did. Like my brother killed it. Like my little brother was, I don't know how it was, 12 at the time, maybe. Yeah, 12. He was 12 at the time when we shot it. I have him like under my wing, like he's, you know, running boom when when our audio guy's not showing up on set, you know, like we have my little brother running around doing everything. He was like a PA and just totally killed it. And it's so funny because he's in the same broadcasting class as I was in, and my teacher's like, oh, it's great you're learning from Alex and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take him under my wing for sure.
That's great, dude. Got to keep it in the family.
Exactly. And it's like, dude, it's crazy because like this generation, what they have in terms of equipment compared to even our generation, which is like not generation, but I mean, like, you know, my brother's 6 years younger than me. It's like, dude, we had Canon T5Is or whatever, you know, shooting 1080. My brother's got a fucking the same camera I have, the Pocket 4K, dude. We got it for freaking $850 off Craigslist. And it's like, holy crap, dude. It's like what he's getting versus what, I mean, but honestly, I think like filmmaking in general has gotten so much more accessible because I mean, everybody's got a freaking cinema camera in their pocket for sure. Like compared to what people had back in like the 90s, it's like, dude, it's crazy. Like, have the price of shooting on film and renting a camera that you can shoot on film and a set of lenses, and like you have to rent lights because, you know, those film stocks were so not sensitive and shit. You have to shoot it like ASA 100 or something. So, you know, the privilege that we have to just be able to have a camera in our pocket at all times is, I think, a pretty, you know, revolutionary thing, and I think it's making it more accessible for everybody.
Yeah, I remember when having a T5i was like the biggest thing I could ever have.
Dude.
I thought it was like probably the greatest camera to possibly have as an entry-level filmmaker.
For sure.
And it's so
dude.
funny because then my cousin would go use his phone, which has a better in-body stabilization. The iPhones have way better in-body stabilization than like any of those Canon entry-level cameras, which is so funny.
Yeah, that's freaking hilarious. And then like I'm like, dude, I remember like the moment I realized like shallow depth of field, like how to get that. I was like, we were shooting like a little short film in high school, and I'm like, dude, if I take this telephoto lens and I go across the quad, and you guys are sitting at this lunch table, if I zoom in all the way, dude, it looks like it's out of Hollywood. It looks like it's out of Hollywood.
It's game over.
I'm like showing
game over, literally.
Dude, pull the SD card out, like racing back to the computer in filmmaking class. Like, Mr. Brandmeier, wait till you see this, man. It looks like it's out of a Hollywood movie. It's just like this super shitty video on the T5i with like the stock zoom lens. It's like no lighting. Oh god,
bro.
Those are the days, man.
Those were the days. I miss it, honestly, because now I actually have pressure to be good, and we're literally at a school that values having actual quality.
Yeah.
Back at home, like I was literally the only person who tried to do video anything. I went to like a really small Catholic school, only 60 kids in the graduating class.
Damn.
They gave no shit about like the arts at my school, unless it was for like the drama department, which was okay, I guess. But like when it came to everything else, like they kept on defunding the art department to fund sports and stuff. Naturally, everyone's doing that. But like there was no like video, anything. So literally everything that I had to do was out of my own pocket and out of my own drive to do that. And I'm pretty glad that I ended up the way that I have. But it's just like, it was so annoying because I always had this innate desire to tell stories and like do stuff, but I had no environment to foster or curate that.
Yeah, that's a complete 180 from what my experience was, because at my school, it was like, my broadcasting class in middle school was like #1 in the country for live shows. Daily #1 in the country for live shows there. And we literally had like the set. Well, like, this was more broadcasting though. We had like the set from Fox Sports that they got rid of. They donated it to us, so we had like the actual like legit set in there. And then I go to high school, and it's like the guy that runs the program. He's like a really, really good guy. His name's Doug Green. He also runs the middle school one though. So I was super fortunate to have that and sort of have that, storytelling at my disposal, even though it was different storytelling than what I ultimately wanted to do. But I think, just having my hands on cameras, it was like, shit, man, this is sick. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I think I found that there. And then in high school, my junior and senior year, I took filmmaking as well. So I had broadcasting class and then filmmaking class. And then filmmaking, that was like, I really fell in love with the medium and like totally got into that instead of like, I always loved movies, especially like the big budget movies and shit back then.
Yeah.
But like I never really got into like, art house films and that kind of stuff. And I started doing that after I found, the filmmaking class. And like, that was probably, Brandmeier is probably the best teacher I think I've ever had in my life. Like
in high school?
I'm still in contact with him. Yeah.
That's great.
He actually was a huge help on Road Trip because he let me come in and we borrowed some of the equipment from the high school.
Oh, let's go.
So like the mic and the boom and the follow focus. I didn't have a follow focus back then, so I was borrowing the follow focus from the high school, and all that stuff and the lights for the driving scene and that kind of stuff. So all that I wouldn't have been able to happen, at least for the budget we did, if I didn't have Brandmeier and that whole film program.
Yeah, I only had like one teacher who had faith in me when it came to this stuff, and which was really good. You only need like one person to have faith in you, and then you're off.
Yeah.
We had this like creative writing class because that's the closest thing that we had to anything storytelling, film related. And they made us like scripts and stuff. And I was like, whoa, I actually really love doing this stuff. And it's so weird because today I woke up and I just found on my table, I guess my mom put them there, like these old like high school creative writing stories that I made. And it's so funny because I was reading this one, like it's called Molochio or some shit. Like, it's so funny. It's basically like a replay of the opening scene from Inglourious Bastards,
Oh, there
but
you
it's
go.
like 1920s, like at a diner. And I'm like, wow. This
Oh,
is kind of
boy.
corny, but it's like still like
Yeah,
I've
because
come
you're realizing
far,
your
bro.
roots, you know? You're realizing your roots. And
Yeah,
so
dude.
it's like you cringe when you look at it, but it's like, shit, dude, that's where we came from. You know, that's where it all started. So, you know, you have that, you know, sort of nostalgia and that sort of respect for, you know, where you were in the past.
And it's weird, like when you're creative, you have, I don't know how to explain it, but you have like a innate tone. Like when you look back at your old stuff, you still feel and see sparks of what you are now, even back then,
That's true. That's true for sure.
even if
And
it's
it's like,
like really subtle.
yeah, oh yeah. And you sort of have that voice that you have, and I think that voice really never changes. It just sort of evolves.
Yeah,
Right. I mean,
dude.
well, I guess it changes, but I mean, it just evolves a little bit. You know what I mean? It still has, you know, the artifacts of what it was before.
Yeah. And I like really can't wait to see what comes next out of like everything.
Yeah.
So like what's next with you really? What's next? Are you gonna make another feature? Like what's on the
No. Okay, so what I'm doing next is I'm producing executive producing that show I was talking about for PRiSM, Unstable. I'm going to direct one of those episodes for that and that kind of stuff. But even in the short run before that, I'm shooting music videos and that kind of stuff. But in terms of narrative stuff, we're shooting a proof of concept for Unstable, just so we can have something when we're going to, you know, go for budgets and that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
Kickstarter and all that. It's called Quarantine Comic. It was written
Okay.
it was written by one of my buddies who is a comic himself. One of my buddies from the lacrosse team at Emerson, and he's, you know, sort of getting into the script writing and that kind of stuff. So he wrote this really cool, you know, nice 10-pager or 12-pager that we're going to shoot, and it's about, you know, comics are really social people, and so it's sort of basically when this guy moves out to, you know, a big city, and he's like got his first paid gig lined up and everything, and then quarantine hits, bam. He's stuck at home in a 1-bedroom apartment by himself. And, you know, because he, you know, sort of has that drive to, you know, mingle with other people and that kind of stuff, and he's forced to just stay at home, he's starting to lose his mind a little bit. And so it's, you know, him doing, you know, comedy acts to like little puppets and shit, or like his, like, you know, stuffed animals, and he's like, there's a mask in the audience and that kind of stuff. And he's, you know, it's sort of funny in that way. But then like he sort of starts to like lose his mind a little bit towards the end, because it's like, dude, like, what am I gonna do? Like, it's like he sort of gets anxiety from this whole thing. And you know, so we're gonna have it kind of explore that a little bit, and mental illness a little bit
Oh
as
damn.
well. But it's sort of, yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty cool, because I think for that I'm gonna get to play around with some of my new lenses and stuff before we actually start shooting on Stable. So I'm gonna really get to, you know, figure out how the workflow is gonna work for some of these old vintage lenses and stuff.
So what things didn't you do on Tom and Charlie's road trip that you're gonna do going forward?
Everything.
Everything.
Lighting for sure, I think. And I think I'm going to more stay into just, you know, DPing and just, you know, leaning towards that stuff, and like, you know, sort of just camera department and figuring all that stuff out. And then like later on, you know, I can do some color stuff and that kind of stuff as well, because I sort of like that workflow as well. Yeah, no, I think shooting on different lenses, we have I built up a little bit of a collection, especially during quarantine. I've just been like totally into old vintage primes from Russia, and like there's like a story behind them all, because it's like what happens was the Russians, you know, after World War II, they got the Zeiss plans and they were making copies in Russia, and they have like their own characteristics. And so like I'm super obsessed, because like you buy one of these things and it's like heroin, dude. It's like shit, man. I can get so many of them. It's like, dude, it's like I'll get like a paycheck or something from shooting something, and then I'll just like all of it goes right back into film. It's like all going right back into a new set of lenses. Like I'm gonna go buy this lens. It's like, shit, dude, it's only $30, but then like it adds up. It adds up for sure. So I just got in the mail today some old vintage. Here, I can actually show them. I've got these old vintage anamorphic projector lenses, actually. And so like there's a whole niche market out there, but these things are fucking giant.
Jesus
you know?
Christ, bro. What?
Yeah, so this is an old projector lens from Germany, but it's like
Yeah.
I got 3 of these things for like $300, but they're worth it way more than that. This one's from Russia. This one's even bigger. Like it's so big you have to have like a mount for the rails, but
Yeah,
like
dude.
it has that squeeze, so I can shoot 2 times anamorphic. But and then I have like a smaller one. This one's from France. You know, like so it's like kind of from everywhere around the world. It sort of has like their own characteristics as well. But these things flare, like this thing has such unique flair. So I think I'm probably gonna end up keeping this one and selling these 2 other ones because like they're just too heavy, man. Like my rig's already so heavy. I don't feel like, you know, because I like to shoot a lot of handheld. But if it's so heavy, I'm just gonna make, unless I get an easy rig or something. But I just don't feel like spending the money on that. So I'm just gonna probably flip those ones and just service them. Because that's another thing is I've gotten, you know, really good at servicing lenses and that kind of stuff, taking things apart and, you know, sort of putting it together. Because I feel like with these old vintage lenses, like you'll spend, you know, under $100 on a lens. So it's like, yeah, it's a lot of money if you screw up, but it's like if you screw up, it's not the end of the world. It's not like you lost like a freaking $1,500 lens. And so like I'll be taking these things apart, putting them back together, taking these things apart, putting them back together, and figuring it all out myself and through YouTube and that kind of stuff. And since then, like I've been like totally addicted. I've gotten pretty decent, like taking these things apart, declicking the aperture, throwing an oval disc in there, you know, servicing, cleaning the elements, and then putting them back together, putting a focus gear on there, you know, working with the adapters and that kind of stuff. And you're just getting better and better. So like it's gotten to the point where now I'm gonna try and pick up a 3D printer. And
Jesus Christ, dude.
I'm picking up a 3D printer and I'm gonna make my own single focus solution. Because basically with these anamorphics, the whole, you know, big gripe with the projection lenses is that they're double focused. So that means you have to focus on the, you know, taking lens on your regular spherical lens, and then you have to focus on your anamorphic lens as well, because it's 2 different lenses. So then it's like a pain in the ass because you can't shoot anything run and gun. You have to like really line, and people can't be moving and that kind of stuff. And so I'm like, screw that. They have these things. You get like an old wide angle adapter, like this really niche one. I can find it on eBay. And so I'm going to buy this thing, and then I'm going to, you know, download these files and build together my own thing where it's basically a diopter. If people don't know what that is, it basically like lets you choose a focal plane without like just screw it on usually, and it'll just be able to let you focus closer or farther or whatever. And so if I use this one, what I can do with it is it has a focus gears on it, and so you can like move it back and forth. It's just like a little thing on the inside. It just moves the diopter back and forth, so you can just get a single focus. So like if you just focus infinity on both lenses, then it like lets you focus regular on that. But then like you get like a long trail of lenses that literally go like 2 feet long of lenses. But I think it's worth it in the end because you get that, you know, sort of different characteristic to your image.
Yeah, definitely going forward with all those lenses, there's going to be a whole lot of character in what you make visually. Like you're doing what I could never do. I don't think I could dedicate all that time into lenses, probably because I haven't yet, but it sounds like a lot, dude.
Slope, man. I'm so addicted.
Yeah, holy shit.
Like, then I'm like flipping cameras and shit. So like with I just basically emptied my bank account and just bought a Blackmagic Pocket 4K off eBay for like $1,600. No, it was like $1,600 before shipping, or no, before tax. And it was like $1,700 total. But like, dude, it came with an $800 speed booster, you know, a $700 Sigma 18-35, which was like a lens I wanted to get for a while, and like a cage and everything, an SSD, like the whole 9 yards. This thing is like brand new. I just got in the mail yesterday, and like I like just upgraded all my shit, like taking apart my whole rig. I'm so pumped because I'm gonna just be able to just sell the camera and like all the accessories and shit, and throw in maybe one of my anamorphics or something, say anamorphic package, and just sell that and just make some money on it too. So I'll like literally be getting like $1,500 worth of lenses for free.
And then you could like invest that money into more lenses.
Exactly.
That's the game.
It's all the loop, man. It's all the running down the rabbit hole.
And then you're gonna end up with like some 30K lens or something.
Yeah.
Holy
all
shit.
For, yeah, just keep going and going and going.
And you started from a T5i. That's
yeah.
Imagine.
I've come a long way for sure, dude. Like even from last summer, it's like I was so pumped to just have the Blackmagic. Like when I got that thing, it felt like, oh, it felt so good to finally have a camera that like, you know, has decent amount of dynamic range. And like I think if I wouldn't have had the Blackmagic, I would have never got really into DaVinci and like figuring out how to color grade and that kind of stuff. And I think that's such an overlooked part of the filmmaking process is color grading. And I think more people need to look into it because I think you can really push your image, especially with these cameras now that are like 12-bit, 14-bit, 16-bit. You know, like you can really push that image without, you know, quality loss and like, you know, make your image completely different than what it came out of camera. And like if you have that, the problem is like people would do that and like they'll decide meeting later. But the thing is, if you go into it thinking, if I shoot this like this and I emulate this film stock later and I do this and change it, it's like then that if it's well thought through beforehand, then you're fine because you can light on set for that kind of stuff. But I think, I mean, you can save things in the edit for sure. But I think like a lot of times people just slap a LUT on something and say, oh, this looks dope, you know, which is like cool and it's like an easy workflow. But like a LUT doesn't hold up anything close to color grading for sure. Because like, dude, like you look at people's like LUT packs on YouTube and it's like, dude, the shadows are so unbalanced and they look like shit. And then like, if you look at anything professional compared to those, it's like, oh, then you download the ones from the LUT packs and it looks nothing like the footage because you shot in a different codec and that kind of stuff. And I think people just need to learn color grading. It's not like that much to learn. I think it's like it's like a lot of things, right? The more time you spend into it, this way, right? The more time you spend, it will move exponentially at first and it'll kind of level off, right? And so it's like just like how you spend money on cameras. It's like, okay, like you spend, you know, the difference between a T5i and a Blackmagic is like what, like, you know, $1,000 or something, or like a little less than that. But like the amount you jump is so much, right? But if you spend the difference between a Blackmagic and a, you know, red helium, it's like, dude, most people aren't going to be able to tell the difference from that. That's just filmmakers, and like you can tell the difference between that if it's well lit, if you know what you're doing with lighting. And
exactly.
Kind of, you can get, you know, 95% of the way there, and you're spending a fraction of the price, right? But like the jump from the T5i to the Blackmagic is just ridiculous, you know. And I think it's like the more money you spend, the less return on investment you get.
Exactly. Especially when you're already at that point where you have a Blackmagic. Like you were saying, the jump from a Blackmagic to a red is probably indistinguishable to the casual viewer.
For sure.
So,
and I think that's another huge testament to like where we've come in terms of technology for how accessible filmmaking has gotten, you know. And it's like you can spend, you know, $2,000 for a weekend to rent an, you know, Arri Alexa, or you can buy a fucking Blackmagic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd buy the Blackmagic any day versus, you know, I mean, unless it's like a huge, you know, paid gig with like you can afford to rent a, you know, Arri Alexa. But I think like if you could just, I think there's no excuse now to, you know, I mean, even with the phones and everything, there's no excuse not to get into filmmaking.
Exactly. And there's so many creatives out there taking advantage of this technology now. Like, I don't use TikTok that much, but there are a hella shit ton of creative people on TikTok who are just waiting to have that platform, which they have right now.
And the algorithm works in our favor too on TikTok. Works on the people who are on the blow up, you know? Because but I mean, I think that's something I need to get into. Is I've been having a bunch of people tell me like TikTok is something that we should do for PRiSM in the future, and I think it's a good idea because, you know, that probability that you can blow up is so much higher than something like Instagram or, you know, YouTube or something where the algorithm doesn't work in your favor, versus TikTok where it's like the For You page is gold mine for up and coming. So I think that's something we need to definitely look into for sure.
And the thing is, if you blow up on TikTok and if you say that during like a job interview or something, it'll blow the minds of these old heads.
Yeah, they just
oh shoot, like he went viral on TikTok. Does that mean like he's talented? That's crazy.
The suits, man. The suits.
Yeah, they don't understand it. So we have to take advantage of the new technology while they can.
And I think what's cool though about TikTok is like one of my buddies, Austin, who's the one who wrote Quarantine Comic. He blew up on TikTok and he sort of used it to redirect his, you know, following to Instagram as well. And so he sort of got like an Instagram page with a bunch of followers now too, because he, you know, used TikTok to get there. And you know, Toomey, he blew up on TikTok as well with his band and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think if you have a niche, you know, a sort of a niche, you know, talent or niche skill or niche information that people want to see that's interesting enough, and you use TikTok, I think TikTok promotes those very niche things to the right audience. So I think that works really well.
Yeah, no, definitely should 100% invest in that if you're a creative. Like I haven't done it yet in the capacity that I should, but definitely it's on the checklist because you're right. The rerouting to Instagram is huge. And then you have a platform. Like I look at these kids who have like probably 10 viral TikToks from my hometown. And it's just like, wow, you have 16K followers now just on like
it's
a
crazy,
series of
man.
TikToks. That's crazy.
And it's like most of these things, like, I don't know, I maybe it's the boomer in me, I guess. It's like,
Yeah, I
man,
know.
these kids
Definitely.
are just dancing, bro. These kids, they're not doing anything. They have no talent. They're just literally just dancing for the camera, and then they're blowing up. And it's like,
That's why I haven't like tackled it yet. That's why I
Yeah.
haven't tried to even make content for that platform yet, because I'm like, this is stupid.
and it's sort
Like
of
I don't even use it regularly, and it's like
I don't even have it downloaded on my phone, dude. Because I feel like also I don't want to like, because I know how I am, dude. It's like I downloaded that app and I'll just start scrolling. It's bad enough with YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook.
Mhm.
If I got TikTok too, I'd be on my phone literally all day. So it's like that's what's really holding me back from doing it. But I think the business aspect of it is so, you can blow up on there and it's so valuable. So I think that might outweigh that. I mean, maybe just like figure out how to, put a timer on my phone to make sure I'm not on it as much, because I feel like you just get lost away in the content because there's so much stuff out there nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. And people are so quick to like consume it.
Fast.
Therefore, I don't know. I need to really like look into that, because it's probably not even that hard to. I mean, you make one 15-second thing, and it just has to be wildly creative or like a how to do something and showing the product of you doing that thing. And I feel like it wouldn't take that much time to create a 15-second thing for that platform in that way. I just haven't like set my mind to do that thing yet.
And I
don't
think
know.
I watched a TED talk yesterday about like the future of film and stuff, and I was like in 2014, and he was talking about like how Netflix. I don't know. I thought they were streaming platforms at this time, but at that point it was like when you'd send in the disc and that kind of stuff, and then you send in they send out you the movie, you watch it on your DVD player, and then you send the disc back. But like at that point, he's talking about like when there's change, there's always going to be opportunity. Like what happened was and the people who embrace the opportunity are they going to be the ones who make it and later on, right? And when that new opportunity is the thing. So like when TV came around to film, a lot of the film studios were like, fuck TV. If anybody has a TV on this, if anybody owns a TV on this set, we're gonna come smash it. Like screw this. Like you don't want a TV. And then like one of the studios, I forgot which one it exactly was. Maybe it was Universal, or one of the studios was like, okay, we're embracing the TV, because at that time they were super small and they just got a bunch of investors and they saw that opportunity and they blew up. And then like someone like MGM, who was like the glamour studio, became like reduced to almost nothing, versus these people who are now running the show. I forgot what studio it was exactly, but it was really interesting because it's like, I think with streaming platforms and stuff, that's the future. And especially with COVID and all this, it's like, it's so sad, but it's ending the span of the theaters. And I don't think theaters are going to be around for that much longer, except for like maybe small, art house theaters and that kind of stuff. They're always going to be for the nostalgia. But I think it's so sad to see, like, I think it was happening anyways, but I think like this just made it so much faster. Like it exponentialized everything, dude.
Yeah. Especially because of the HBO Max deal, I really see theaters becoming more of a niche audience type of activity to do. And perhaps like theaters will turn into centers of community the same way like libraries have, unfortunately. But that's just the direction where things are going right now. But I don't know. Like, as long as there's always theaters, and there's a theater to go to, then I'm chill. But it just sucks to see that the distribution model is going to shit when it comes to that, because that's how I fell in love with movies in the first place,
It's almost like how are you going to adapt to it, though? That's the thing, is like if you're going to be when they made the what's it called? When in the 1800s, when the Industrial Revolution came around, and they made those machines that helped weave the cotton way faster or whatever, and they made the clothes so much faster than people were. These people were so bad, and what happened was instead of adapting, they had the whole livelihood stripped from them, and they went and burned down these factories, and they destroyed these machines and that kind of stuff. Versus, and where does that get them? It's like it gets them nowhere. It's just like a retaliation against this. It's not like those. Once the technologies come, it's not like once the cat comes out of the bag, you're not going to put the cat back in the bag, And it's sort of like, I mean, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but like, look at like what they're talking about with automation of jobs and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And, once the cat's out of the bag, once they make these electric trucks, then, that huge amount of the workforce is going to be displaced. And it's like, how are we going to make that workforce go and be productive and sort of, have something to give back to society, even though they've been trained and promised that they could work like this job. And I think that it's a good thing for creatives, because I think
put more focus on creatives rather than like labor,
skilled labor, because I think skilled labor has been important so much up until now, and I think it still is going to be important because I don't think you can automate like plumbing and shit, maybe way down the line or like whatever. But I think creativity is something you can't automate, right?
Exactly.
You can't have a computer, be creative. It's just reading zeros and ones, right? And so it can do those simple tasks. It can do, build cars. It can do this. It can do that, which is great. And it makes but I mean, it puts those people out of work. But I think for creatives, I think like they're never going to be able to, well, I hope. Knock on wood.
That's the beauty of it, though. Like, creativity is never going to die, and artists and creatives are not affected by this automation industrial change that we are seeing in the future. Like, you see these doctors being paid like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, right, with a $6,000 salary, but now they could do surgeries on grapes, and they could probably do surgeries on like hearts and stuff. You know what I'm getting at.
Or even like my grandma was talking about like a procedure, and like it literally went in and cut the smallest little hole, and the recovery time was like ridiculous compared to like what it would be if a human had to do it. Because it was so efficient at what it was doing. And so that way, like, it's just going to totally, like, those truck drivers are going to be put out of work because these trucks can drive 24/7 almost. They'll stop for a couple hours to charge and then just keep going. These giant electric trucks, and they're better for the environment and that kind of stuff. So it's progress in the end, but like when you're in that overlapping period, like it totally sucks for all those people who are just going to like not have jobs and like have to figure something out.
Yeah, I'm just lucky that we don't really have to deal with that.
Yeah,
which is great, unless it's like cranes programmed with like movements for shots and stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, but that's cool because you're not going to be able to like, they're not going to be able to think of the shots in the first place. It's just like,
exactly.
It's a tool, right? And a tool can automate things that are skilled. It can't automate things that are mindful, I guess.
Exactly, you put it perfectly. Yeah, but this has been a great talk. Thank you, Alex, for coming on, and thank you, Max, for coming on earlier. This has been a great conversation spanning like the movie and also, I guess, automation, which is the topic we just
9 yards.
Yeah, exactly. So where could the audience check you out, and where could they follow you? What's your handle?
Yeah, just follow me. It's a long one. You'll probably, it's Alex Hrisanthopoulos. The longest last name ever. If you just probably look up Alex, Hrisan or something like that, it'll probably come up, I bet. Or if you just go on PRiSM, it's probably tagged on there somewhere. If you want to find my stuff. Awesome.
Okay, so that's a wrap on the PRiSM podcast. I'm your host, Rodrigo Mariano. Follow me on my socials at Dragon's Foe, and follow the both of us in our endeavors when it comes to PRiSM on PRiSM Media Official. So thanks for watching, guys, and see you next time.